It's time for this week's edition of the College Football Playoff Rankings Breakdown. We are now entering week number 2, and if you thought week number 1 was bad, just wait for number 2. Let's get right into it. We're going to go 25 through 19 through 15, 14 through 10, 9 through 5, and then 4 through 1. Coming in at number 25 in the country, we have the Arkansas Razorbacks at 6-3. 24th, we have Utah at 6-3. 23rd, we have UTSA 9-0. 22nd, we have San Diego State 8-1. 21 ranked in the country is Pittsburgh at 7-2, and 20th in the land is the Iowa Hawkeyes at 7-2. Thoughts on the top 25, JR? Then we'll move to Dylan.
Minnesota, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Utah playing really well ever since they shipped Charlie Brewer out. That team is playing very, very well. I've liked Kyle Whittingham, another guy, potentially a very good coach. What else you got? Pitt. Tough game against UNC tonight. Little bit shady line, 6.5. I think that's really high. But if you look at UNC, they've put a lot in their last 2 weeks. This is a tough 3-game stretch. All those teams probably right where they should be, and probably a couple of teams that are fast on the rise. Iowa, boy, how the mighty have fallen. Because I'm not even quite sure they're worthy of being in the top 25.
I agree. Dylan, thoughts on 25 through 20?
I like JR's point about North Carolina, the tough stretch that they had. I mean, this is a short week after 2 big offensive performances where they've had tough opponents and they've just been battling. So curious to see how that one turns out tonight. But I look at number 23, University of Texas San Antonio, our team, obviously, that we broke down early on before the season started. Wanted to know what UTSA was, University of Texas San Antonio. They're undefeated. You can say what you want about strength of schedule. An undefeated team at 35 or 23, I think you jump up a little bit higher. I think that they've been deserving of that a little bit more. And I do give credit to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's a great team. We mentioned Pickett. 21, I think, is still a little bit too low for them, but that's just my thoughts on the top 20.
Pittsburgh lost to Miami, a struggling Miami squad, and they also have a loss to Western Michigan on the year.
At home.
At home, exactly. Now, please don't get me wrong. They're a solid team. My hatred towards Pat Narduzzi kind of is getting in the way of this. I can't stand the guy after what his remarks about Notre Dame last year were just baffling to me. But anyway, I think Pitt should be a little bit lower. Iowa, the only reason they're still in the top 25, everybody knows the answer to that. The chairman of the College Football Playoff Committee is Iowa's athletic director. That's personally my opinion. Utah, I think Utah is deserving over Iowa for the 20th spot in the country because looking at Oregon's schedule, guys, Utah is the only one who really can hang with Oregon, and I personally think can beat them. All right, 19 through 15 here. Oregon doesn't look too good, my guy. Oregon does not look too good. They needed a safety to beat Washington. They don't look too good at all. Okay. Ohio State and Oregon in Columbus right now, Ohio State would win by 3 possessions. I can almost guarantee it, the way Ohio State's playing. All right.
I disagree with that. Well, I guess we could get to Ohio State when we get to Ohio State, so I'll save that for down the road.
Hold that thought, Jetty. 19 through 15 here. We got Purdue coming in at 19 at 6-3. This is kind of a baffling ranking here. 18th ranked Wisconsin, 6-3. 17th ranked Auburn, 6-3. 16th ranked NC State at 7-2, and number 15 in the land, the Ole Miss Rebels at 7-2. Thoughts 19 through 15, JR?
Well, 19 and 18, obviously good for us. Wisconsin and Purdue, they're both playing really well. Wisconsin, especially. You could make the argument that Purdue has the 2 most impressive wins of anybody in the country, but the way that Iowa is playing negates that argument a little bit. So we need them to keep having some success. Imagine if Purdue could knock Ohio State off this weekend. It has happened in the past. I do not think Ohio State is playing particularly well right now. They started off slow. They kind of rebounded and corrected themselves. But the last 2 weeks have not been as of an impressive performance as many of the natives around here would have hoped. The rest of those rankings, they are what they are.
Yeah. Dylan?
Yeah, they bring up a good point about Purdue. Like they've upset teams this year, and it might happen again this week. The big win, a lot of people, they were actually favored in that contest against Michigan State and beat them. So that was a tough one there. But I mean, Purdue is just, they're an interesting team. I mean, they got 3 losses, so they're not like, obviously if they were to win those other 3 games, they'd be one of the top 4 in the nation right now, but they seem to just be a mediocre team, but then they show up for big games. So I think you got to give them credit there at 19. I think that's right where they should be. Wisconsin is playing better. Graham Mertz Heisman run. He's looking pretty good there. So kudos to him. Bo Nix, also another Heisman candidate at 17. They came off that tough loss. I mean, I'm all right with it. NC State, I think, is deserving at 16, and then Ole Miss, obviously, they have the big win this year. So I think 15 to 19 is pretty solid.
That's also another thing that's going to go on our shirts is Bo Nix. Just in orange letter, it's Bo Nix.
No space, just Bo Nix.
Bo Nix. All right, my thoughts on 19 through 15. I think Purdue should be a little bit lower. 2 big wins, yes, but just one of their losses being to us, just their wins besides the 2 losses, I'd smush them down to number 20, if I'm being really honest with you. It doesn't matter. They're not going to do anything else this year. Purdue.
They beat Ohio State?
No. They're going to get wobbled. All right, 18th ranked Wisconsin. Man, seems they're the only one who survived Purdue after a big win. This is a confusing Wisconsin team, but I will say Paul Chris saved his job. I think we can all agree on that. He saved his job, but he's still on the hot seat if he doesn't start off hot next year. NC State, that's a little interesting. I thought they'd knock them up a little bit to promote the Wake Forest NC State game this week. Auburn, they're done. I don't think they're going to have a chance against Alabama. They didn't look too good at all against Texas A&M. That offense has got to get going. 15th ranked Ole Miss, underrated, very underrated for Ole Miss. How dare you put the lane train at 15th? All right, 14 through 10 here. Excuse me. 14th, we have the Mormons, BYU at 8-2. 13th ranked Baylor, who apparently is a joke. JR called that last week. 12th ranked Wake Forest, 8-1, who I called was a pretender. 11th ranked Texas A&M, and number 10 in the land, we have the Oklahoma State Cowboys at 8-1. Go Pokes! JR?
Yeah, I don't really have much of a beef with any of it. All those teams are pretty much slated where they should be. A lot of teams or a lot of pundits are saying, look out for A&M. Somehow maybe they could sneak up in there. Oklahoma State, they got Bedlam coming up. They could maybe work their way up. It is what it is. Again, should be right where they're at.
Right. Dylan?
Yeah, I don't have too much to agree or too much to disagree here. I think everything looks about right. Yeah, maybe A&M at 10, but that's just being picky. I'm not a big believer in Oklahoma State. I actually picked their 1 loss this year, but that's neither here nor there. But I think it's the right list right here.
Go Pokes. 9th ranked, coming in at number 9. I also do not have an issue here with the top 15, 14 through 10. Coming in at number 9. This was really, really shocking to me that they have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at number 9 of the country with an 8-1 record. We'll talk about that in just a second. 8th ranked Oklahoma 9-0. 7th ranked Michigan State 8-1. 6th ranked Michigan 8-1. And 5th ranked Cincinnati at 9-0. JR, thoughts on 9 through 5?
I would have hoped that Notre Dame would have been a little bit higher, especially given the way that we're playing. We're getting a little bit of a boost, late season boost from some of our opponents who are playing well and getting some nice wins. We could get a little bit more of a boost if UNC could somehow win tonight and string together a successful end of the year. But yeah, I wish we would have been a little bit higher, but I guess it's hard to argue with their logic there with the teams that are in front of us. So again, you got to hope for some carnage in front of us. Oklahoma, I know they have a lot of opportunities still in front of them to impress the committee and move up, but I think that they're low. I think that they should be both ahead of the one-loss Michigan teams. And I really don't understand why Michigan State is behind Michigan. And if you listen to Barta, the playoff guy, kind of try and rationalize and give his logic on how they came up with that. Dude, all you have to do is look at the scoreboard. They played a week ago. Mm-hmm. That seems to be the hot button topic for the rankings this week. Head to head, they played. Okay, maybe Michigan got screwed with a call and the Big Ten came out and, sorry, we screwed you over and the Hutchinson call should have been turned over. Fact of the matter is you can't litigate a loss after it already happened. Michigan State won on the scoreboard. They got the same record. I think Michigan State should be in front of Michigan.
Agreed. Dylan?
Yeah, that's that thing. I know this doesn't sound right. Maybe my opinion here isn't logical, but I think it is logical with the upcoming Ohio State-Michigan game. I think this is a TV game. They're trying to get a top 4 team going up against a top 6 team, and 6 looks a lot better than 7, and they're trying to sell the game. So that might be an unpopular take, but I think it is. I think that's right where it is. The Irish at 9 kind of makes me sick, but Oklahoma at 8 also makes me sick. They're undefeated. I know they haven't looked good in some of their wins, but I mean, they're an undefeated football team. And you're telling me the Ducks of Oregon or anything else that's ahead of them? Like, what the heck is going on here? Like, this is absolute madness. And then you look at Cincinnati at 5. We can talk about them all day being undefeated, not even in. But Notre Dame, this is where I sort of have a take here. Notre Dame 8-1, Michigan State 8-1. Michigan State's losses to Purdue, who Notre Dame beat. Notre Dame's losses to a team ahead of Michigan State. So that's sort of my thing, where I'm not saying that Notre Dame should be ahead of Michigan State because Michigan State has a top 6 win against Michigan, and we do not have any of that on our resume right now. But I think it's something to consider that, hey, a team that Notre Dame beat pretty handedly is a team that number 7 lost to.
Man, that you made some really good points. You kind of took off of you kind of read my mind here. I was going in the direction of Oklahoma as well. Look, Oklahoma's 9-0. Whether you like Mobilehoma or not, guys, they're 9-0. They have found ways to win games. Has it looked pretty? No. But you're telling me that some of Oregon's wins have looked pretty against Washington? Cincinnati's wins against Tulane and Navy looked good? No. Michigan State, I mean, they got blasted by Purdue. They did not look good at all. Michigan, their loss to Michigan State. They didn't look too good at all on the defensive standpoint. Oklahoma finds ways to win games. I guess I fail to understand the logic. And here's another issue I have. Barta says head-to-head matters. Yes. Dude, look at 6 and 7. 8-1. 7th-ranked Michigan State. 8-1. 3rd-ranked Oregon. 8-1. Ohio State. 4th-ranked. 8-1. You literally have Oregon over Ohio State because of head-to-head, yet you turn around and have Michigan behind, or Michigan ahead of Michigan State, despite Michigan having the loss. I truly am baffled and don't get the logic. Notre Dame here at number 9 in the country. I'm fired up about this. I mean, we beat Purdue by 14 points. We allow 13 points. Michigan State gives up a 40 piece and they only score 29 points, I believe it was. I'm baffled by it. I think besides Georgia, this is chaos. I think we can all agree on that term. Besides Georgia, 2 through 25 really does not matter. All right, Dylan, obviously cut the part where I said dumbass out, please.
Why? It was good.
No. Thank you. All right.
Dumbass.
Thank you. All right, and now let's get into the top 4 through 1. Coming in at 4th, as I mentioned, the Ohio State Buckeyes at 8-1. The 3rd-ranked Oregon 8-1. Number 2, Alabama, 8-1, and number 1 in the country above everybody else, no doubt, is Georgia at 9-0. Thoughts here on number 4 through 1? JR, I want to hear your point about Ohio State, Oregon real quick.
Well, real quickly, this Gary Barta guy, he reminds me of a politician. He picks and chooses his arguments to fit his narrative. You know, in one case, he'll cite head-to-head. In another case, he'll cite the eye test. In another case, he'll cite the calendar and how they're playing. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. These things will work themselves out. As with respect to 1 through 4, 0 State, they have plenty of opportunity in front of them, much like Oklahoma. I think they play 3 ranked teams in a row coming up. Tough one on the road at Perdon't. Hoping that they could somehow slip up. I'm not a 0 State fan. Oregon, I'm not a believer in them. I'm not buying their stock. Alabama, they got holes. But should they be 2? Probably. They would probably be favored against any other team with exception to Georgia. And Georgia, you know, really good. Maybe one of the best defenses in college football history. They just lost an outside linebacker to a rape charge. And they play Tennessee this week, who is the best offense that they will have faced to date. So interesting to see how they stack up against them without one of their criminals roaming the defensive backfield. So 1 through 4, probably, you know, set how they should be. Again, Oregon beats Ohio State. They're in front of they're in front of 0 State. Michigan State beats Michigan. They're behind Michigan. Not much logic to that, but you know, whatever. Let's as Notre Dame fans, let's hope for a little bit of chaos there.
Right. You guys ever watch The Dark Knight, you know, with Joker? Chaos.
Right.
Yeah. Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, 1 to 4, obviously, definitely some thoughts. Ohio State, I love 0 State, 0 above them with Oregon. You know, it's weird how these rankings all come about. Obviously, I rested my case for Cincinnati in the top 4. I still think they're the best team in Ohio. Maybe we'll get to see that. Maybe we won't. But you know, it's when you look at this list, I agree to JR's point with Alabama. They're going to be favored against anybody outside of Georgia. So 2 makes sense for them. But 3, 4, I think 3 through 10 can be, this might be bold. I think it could be interchangeable. I mean, really, it's going to work itself out because we see the schedules aligning. Ohio State plays Michigan. You have a lot of games in between there where we can really see and really find out who is 3 and 4. Right now, it's undecided. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Oregon and Ohio State are going to be 3-4 when the season's over.
I do agree. I think Oregon's going to slip up, and I think Ohio State's going to slip up a little bit. They are playing good football, but I do believe that they will slip up. Not to Michigan, though. Not to Michigan. All right. That does it for week number 2 of the College Football Playoff Rankings Breakdown. We will continue this next week, obviously, with week number 3.